So with that, we are ready for our next interview. And for this, I'd like to bring on Lukas, who's a co-founder of Safe, to talk about the future of safes and how we see multisigs evolving in the future. So please welcome Lukas on stage.
By the way, Kartik, it's my first time at Pragma, and you manage every time to get a better venue than the last time, so I know how I do it, but heads up to that.
This is especially thanks to the rest of our team. I had zero involvement on this one, but it is usually fun for us to think about churches or banks as venues, and we've kind of been historically on that theme, where you either see a crypt or a vault, and I think it's just we got to have a little bit of fun here. So. I'm glad that you like it. I've heard the same thing from a lot of you in the audience, and I love this venue too. It's awesome. I didn't realize you can book churches, so I'm like, this opens up a whole new set of possibilities for the future. So we've definitely been talking a lot about how safes have evolved in the last year, and we've obviously seen a massive growth and just directly from developers and even protocols and companies. So the thing I guess I'm curious about is maybe we just spend a quick few seconds here on just understanding how did this actually start. So can you walk us through like the history of Safe and this kind of spin out from Gnosis, and maybe complement this with the new Gnosis 3.0 vision that just kind of came out a week ago.
Yeah, as you said, Safe is a spin-off from Nosis, and actually it's funny to think about, like, Nosis itself is a spin-off from Consensus, which you could argue is a spin-off from the Ethereum Foundation, so it's kind of like the fourth generation of spin-off at this point.
Real-life Rollups.
Exactly. And yeah, how kind of they came together was as Stefan within Consensus was experimenting with prediction markets, and then as a spin-off, as Gnosis wanted to solve this thing called prediction markets, which is like incentives in order to surface information at the end of the day. And as they went along with that, they realized there's like so much in infrastructure missing in crypto, and that was from like self-custody to like how do we actually trade these prediction market tokens and like a bunch of other things, and it just didn't exist. So it was 2016, and then Gnosis was actually forced to build these things themselves. So they started building these teams. One was then becoming like the Safe team. One ended up then as the now Cow Swap team, and some others. So like there were some things that were very successful and some things that were not so successful, including prediction markets itself. But yeah, it just happened that then from the idea of building prediction markets, Gnosis actually turned into like a venture studio of sorts, building like a bunch of very important infrastructure. And yeah, especially with self-custody, Gnosis like did an ICO in 2017, and they suddenly had to self-custody a lot of crypto. So back then there were no good solutions that were suitable for Gnosis.
Just had to do it on your own.
Yeah. So Stefan sat down and wrote some initial smart contract as it was back then called Gnosis Multisig contract, open sourced it, and suddenly all the other ICO projects during that time started using it themselves, a bunch of assets on these multi-signature wallets, and then the idea came like back then called smart contract wallets, now smart accounts. They can actually be also very helpful or very useful for anyone using crypto. So that's when the project Run Safe formed, like how can we bring smart accounts to everyone using crypto. So new set of smart contracts that was more general purpose, not just for teams. That was also like flexible, so you could add more features as you go along, which then also helped teams move into DAOs, where suddenly it wasn't just 4 multisig signers, but like 1,000 multisig signers controlling an account. And yeah, that kind of took off, and at some point the community around Safe became big enough that it justified spinning it out and just say like this goes its own path with its own mission, while still having its ties to Gnosis. And you mentioned Gnosis 3.0, which is like kind of the the summary of how Gnosis sees the next few years to look like. So Gnosis 1.0 is prediction markets. Gnosis 2.0 is this like infrastructure venture builder. And Gnosis 3.0 is really how can we now leverage this important infrastructure that was built in a way to democratize payments and financial services. And I can actually show something here.
Oh, we're going to see some live demos. This is great.
No demos, except if you have a terminal where you can buy something. But like this is kind of like the centerpiece of Gnosis 3.0. So Gnosis Pay or Gnosis Card, which is like a self-custodial solution to pay for anything, like for your coffee or anything. The cool thing here is that it actually builds on top of Safe. So Safe is like the ownership layer there. And the funds that are associated with the card, they're in full self-custody up to the point that you actually go into the store, you buy something, and at the merchant terminal, then you pay for it. And at this point only, there's like a fiat off-ramp happening, which is just cool for people who like self-custody, but it also, by doing that, this intermediates about like 6 to 10 kind of stakeholders of like a regular payment process and just massively reduces the cost of payments. So that's like that's just like the first product that's built on this kind of infrastructure around Gnosis, which consists of like Gnosis Chain, like a chain specifically for payments. It's Safe is included there, but also like a bunch of other things that Gnosis have been building. And yeah, that's kind of like the hopefully next years of like actually bringing the technology, the infrastructure we've been building to like millions of people out there.
That's awesome. We're gonna go into Gnosis Pay in a little bit because we have another interview on actually talking about how it actually works behind the scenes, which is super fascinating. Well, this seems like a lot of stuff has happened in the world of Safe. So maybe one kind of thing I'm curious about is just overall what is the current state of safes right now? Like, are there any kind of high-level stats you can share? How do you actually measure success? Is it just purely money that you're securing, or some other metric? What actually gets you excited about the growth of Safe?
Yeah. So actually, the single thing that Safe is after is make every account in Web3 a smart account. Like that's kind of like the end goal. That's what we're after. So that's also how we measure the success of the project. Is like how many accounts are not EOAs anymore, but rather smart accounts. And like I would even say like it doesn't even matter like long term whether that's like the Safe smart account or any other smart account. Like the project is really about making this transition happening. So yeah, just curious in here. Who is using Safe right now? So maybe half, not as well as ENS. But
chances are they've all interacted or used one without knowing either. It's a good odds here. Who here has a Worldcoin ID? There you go. If you didn't know that, it's a Safe, right?
Yeah, everyone using
Safe.
Gnosis.
Who here has ever used or worked with a DAO of any sort in the last few years? Also a Safe, hopefully. But that's great.
Actually a good point. Like the idea is also that like this technology Safe becomes also invisible. Like it shouldn't matter. You shouldn't even know that you use it. But like it's kind of like this fundamental infrastructure that just makes your experience with Web3 better and just actually makes you feel Web3 less and less. Like you shouldn't care about gas fees. You shouldn't care about like what network you're interacting with and so on. Like, and these things will be enabled through smart accounts. But yeah, also in terms of adoption, I think what was good is that through the bear market there was actually more adoption coming to smart accounts and Safe specifically. So that's cool to see. Like we just recently passed like $100 billion worth of assets on Safe. Like that's obviously like a huge number. That's like the second, or like in terms of like smart contracts kind of securing value, that's like after the ETH staking deposit contract, the second most used contract. But like it's also a number that's like, yeah, I mean, some ERC20 tokens have like a big price, but like a low float, and like this is kind of like a debated number, but it's definitely like a huge number. Like 7 million safes created so far, 1 million monthly active users, so it's definitely has been picking up lately.
Nice. we sort of already, in a way, covered a little bit about the smart accounts when we did the account abstraction panel. But the thing I'm curious about is there a difference in definition of what a safe smart account is, and are there any small kind of differences on what people think is a smart account or a smart wallet, and what you think a same version but that's a safe default is, and how should we think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've also seen with the other panel, like there's a little bit of a general confusion around these terms, what they mean, how they differ. I mean, safe smart account existed pre-ERC 457, so they're not, it doesn't depend on 4337, but it kind of matches together. That's also something that like people were asking, like now with 4337, like what's the point of safe? Like kind of asking like whether they're substitutes, where definitely they're not. Like 4337 enables smart accounts. They're kind of like the logic of how smart account transactions are being processed on Ethereum. And so generally, like a lot of safe smart accounts right now don't leverage 4337 yet. I think that's something where the way the safe smart account works is that you can just add 4337 as a feature to it. If you, for example, require...
As like a plugin or as an upgrade?
Exactly.
Thing? Okay.
Yeah. Like we've got like safe modules, which we call, which is part of the contract architecture, and they can add like a 4337 module that enables you then to interact with this like decentralized mempool that kind of is made out of 4337. And if you then have an app that wants to sponsor your transactions, and this requires 4337, at this point then only you will activate 4337. Or there's like wallets that are built on Safe right now that kind of deploy Safe with 4337 module right from the start, but like most deployed ones don't yet use it.
So it looks like that everybody effectively is trying to just become more modular, and it makes total sense because you give the flexibility to the end users on being able to customize that experience. What does that look like in Safes in terms of, you obviously have a plugin library, you're talking about modularizing smart accounts. Are they the same thing here? Are there different kind of standards you're working on? Are there obvious ways we can think about improving certain things? Like, how should we think about these?
Yeah. So in the Safe Smart account, you have different types of modules, or types of plugins. Like one is like a module that extends the logic of your account, which you can have to have like a spending limits feature, for example, added. We've got guards, which are adding additional restrictions on transactions or additional verification logic on the transaction. So every transaction then goes through the guard and checks whatever checks you have there implemented. So do I interact with a smart contract that's not audited? Revert the transaction, for example, is like a logic you could implement like this. Like Safe has been, the architecture has been this way for like 5 years or so, but now as with like 457 more smart accounts being created, like there was the need of like somehow standardizing this modular architecture of smart accounts, because it's otherwise you will have the case where like there's a new feature coming out for one smart account, but it doesn't work with your smart account because it uses a different technical interface, and that's just not how it should be, but rather it should be like like the minimum architecture should somehow be standardized, and then kind of smart accounts can still extend logic as they want. And now, like there's actually 2 standards that came up last year around this. One is ERC 6900, and the other one is ERC 7579. And yeah, it's interesting dynamic right now.
Just a quick one-liner on, just, we don't have to go in depth, but it'll just be good to know what the differences are. Yeah,
I mean, they both try to standardize the types of plugins in a way. But 6900 goes one step further, and there's also like a permissioning system, like how to give permissions to these plugins as like a security feature. And that was something that was initially pushed very much by Alchemy as they wanted to launch their own modular account, and they said like this is how we think modular account should look like, and they proposed it as an ERC, and then kind of had the community collaborate on that. But then some parts of the community said like this is trying to solve too many problems at the same time, like the modularity plus the permission part, and then a few other projects, it's like OKX, Biconomy, Rhinestone, others said like let's make a standard to really solve the basic modularity of smart accounts. The standard is about like simple modular accounts, and the permissioning system might still be needed at some point, but it can be solved independently. And yeah, so there's currently these two camps of like what standard we should really go for. I mean, for Safe, it's I think the pathway is that like it shouldn't matter what standard is getting adopted most. Like with Safe, you should actually be able to use an adapter to be compatible with both of these. So we see Safe even being kind of like a standard-agnostic.
Like you're the base layer anyway, so the modularity in this case helps you because you get to be compatible with either scenario, but you would prefer one to be slightly better.
Yeah.
Interesting. One thing I'm also curious about is, does anything break or get complicated when we think about kind of interoperability between different chains?
A lot of things.
Yeah, that's preparing ourselves for the answer.
I mean, I think when it comes to cross-chain, smart accounts will make it first worse and then actually make it better at a later point, because like how smart accounts work.
How do they make it worse?
Yeah, like how smart accounts work is like they're actually smart contracts that are deployed on each chain specifically, which then have their logic, and you can deploy a smart account with the same configuration on all chains, maybe even at the same address, and kind of have this illusion of like this just being one account, but like on a low level, they're actually different accounts. And like if you change something on this account, it doesn't automatically change something on the account on Optimism when it's changed on Polygon and something like that. So that's quite complicated, where people using like the EOAs, like regular private key accounts, like they just expect them to work out of the box on all networks. So that's definitely a bit of a challenge also from a UX perspective, like because also people then expect that if they create a smart account on Optimism, they can receive assets on Polygon, where in like a worst case scenario, they don't actually retrieve those assets. So in that sense, it makes it worse. But in the long run, actually, I think accounts will actually be on its own rollup at some point.
That's an interesting prediction or foreshadowing.
I mean, there are proposals out there. Also, Vitalik put forward like a kind of a high-level idea about this. It's called like a Keystore rollup, and this then says like your account is in one specific rollup, and then you sort of propagate or you sync the state of the account with all the other kind of sub accounts or linked accounts on all the other networks via like a state root propagation, and that's something that I think will eventually come, and then actually it shouldn't matter anymore on what networks you're interacting with, because this will also then paired with like an intent-centric architecture. People should just say, I want to achieve this, and there's like some kind of intent network that would then
somebody figures it out,
execute that on whatever chain that's the best way to achieve that. And I think that will so that's kind of the, I don't know, 2-3 year vision.
That's actually a really cool, no, that's a good point, because that actually does simplify a lot of the interfacing, because you're effectively delegating it to some service that'll just make it happen, but you don't have to be opinionated about how you want it to happen, per se. That's actually super cool. I did not know about this at all. So I learned something new as well. This is awesome. My final question to you, Lukas, is we've kind of talked about how the last few years have been for Safe, but what can we look forward to for the rest of the year? We're only in March right now. We got 9 more months to go. What's exciting in the works?
I mean, one thing I'm personally excited about is like how can we have better recovery systems for people in Web3, and I don't know if this is going to be a cool thing for many people, but at least I think it's cool. It's like Signum, which is like a Swiss licensed bank. They're working on like a recovery solution where you can come with your smart wallet, your smart account, and you can say, I activate Signum in a actually like nice way where they don't have full access over your account, but only with some time lock and so on as a recovery agent. And you will have to go through KYC with them and like typical banking stuff, but like you're kind of full in self-custody until the point where you lose your keys and you actually want to recover your account, and then you go to Signum and kind of say, hey guys, can you rotate my keys and give me back access to my account? And that's just like, I mean, there's going to be a lot of recovery solutions, like social recovery or like, yeah, but I think that's something where people actually, like, I don't know if it's very popular, but like a lot of people trust banks, unfortunately. Maybe not in this room, but like out in the world. And like at least this might be a way to get in some new type of people. Like, I don't know, my mom would never use.
I am impressed that a bank moved fast enough to make this happen. But that's actually really cool. And is this live or is this in the works, about to be live soon?
I've seen a demo last week, so it's going to be live soon.
This is super cool.
Yeah. And one more thing I'm also excited about is like passkeys, where we also hear today about it, but like that's also something that's in the works, like having, how can you use Safe with passkeys, also in like a very secure way, like formally verified and everything. And by the way, like all the smart contracts Safe does going forward are going to be formally verified by default. So like we're going to put like a lot of focus on making sure like everything is going to be super secure, because I think when more people start using smart accounts, like we cannot allow us to have like another parity kind of situation where like some smart contract bugs gets people scared of.
You don't want mass damage at that scale at that point. Yeah. Well, this is super exciting. Lukas, thank you so much for this chat, and can't wait to see a lot of this integrations come into play in real life. Thanks.
Thank you so much.